Welcome back to the channel. This is Punched, a channel about war games. And today we're going to talk about Vassal. Vassal is an application, a free application, available from vassalengine.org, I believe. I'll have the link, of course, in the comments below, in the description below. And Vassal allows you to have pretty much a virtual desktop or a virtual tabletop for games of all sorts, but my particular interest is in war games. What we're looking at here on screen is the first bits of effort in terms of creating a new Vassal module. One of the nice things about Vassal is that when you download the software, you also get the editing software so that you can create your own modules. I'm going to pop it up here. So this is the module editor. And all I've done so far is, as you can see, I have created a map here on the screen. And I've created a map and mapped hexes to it. As you can see, every time I do this thing I'm doing is an Alt left click, and that gives you this map flare sort of thing. And that's used to call attention to the hex for your opponent. So see my other video, I guess, on bits and pieces and features of Vassal as a player. So I'm trying to create this module. It's for Armored Knights Case Blue Dawn Bend. That's a game that came out here earlier in 2025. It's a game by Grognard Simulations, Inc. And I've spent a fair amount of quality time with the game this year. I did some rules review earlier in the year just to make sure that everything ultimately was coherent and ultimately understandable. I was in the pre-order, and of course I've had a series of videos you may be familiar with on this particular game. And indeed, we're looking at the map for that game. Let me come over here a bit. Where is it? There we go. There's Kalach. This is Kalach na Danu. Horrible pronunciation. I apologize to those speakers or understanders of Russian, but it's the best I got for now. Anyway, we're talking about the parts of the Battle of Kalach. This is sort of some of the preliminaries where 3rd Motorized and 60th Motorized managed to get themselves surrounded. The scenario is called the Tank Cemetery. And so I've created the map and mapped it out so that the game knows the hexes. I've also put counters on the map. And so this is my first counter. It's the headquarters unit for 3rd Motorized. I'll zoom in a bit. If it looks a little fuzzy and ill-defined, that's because I am currently working from scans of the counter mix. So I just put the counter mix on a printer and scanned it. It's functional, right? It's not perfect. You notice that I have 3 different sizes of counter here. What I've been trying to do is to get the counters so that they are approximately the correct size for the hexes. This is a very large map. It takes a few seconds to load up when you load the game. And this is my first effort over here. This was a roughly 60 by 60 pixel. Then obviously way too small. In fact, let me come out to I would expect to play the game with the hexes about this big, because that will give you a fair view of what you're attempting to do here. And actually we should be down here, but that's okay for this video. Then I created the second unit here, and that was my first attempt. I basically doubled the size of the counter in both dimensions, and as you can see, it's a little too big. You know, too hot, too cold, just right? So this is Goldilocks right here. When you're making counters, right? When you're making counters for a game to use in Vassal, we're talking typically about JPEG files That's not necessarily the only graphical format, it just happens to be the one I'm using. You may have to play around with things a bit. So I have been using software called Snagit, which I thoroughly recommend. I use it at work. It's standard, almost standard issue for people in the software development group at my company, because we have to come up with things and annotate things and so on. So this is the scan that I had, and I can basically take you can see right here, hopefully you can see it in this area. Go in and zoom, 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 and come up, come down, right here, middle of the screen, just a bit to the left. In fact, I'll center it. Right here, you can see where I had taken a section out of it and saved it as one of these characters down below. And you can see below where I've saved them off at different dimensions. And so I'm currently operating, I tried a 56 by 56, I tried a 112, too small, 168, too big, 143, just right, that's my Goldilocks. So that's what we've got to work with here. And Snagit itself offers a lot of opportunity for I don't know, for doing all kinds of things. I'm digressing a little bit. Hold on, let me come out of here to a graphics file. Sure, okay, here's a graphics file. Nope, that's not a graphics file. That's a graphics file? Sure, okay, let's say that. Because you can do things like, okay, I'm going to put in here is my attack, right? You can put in all kinds of different annotations. You can compare and compose things. So, for example, if I wanted to go over and grab something, so I'll copy this, and I'll come back over here and then paste it in, and you can see where I've Control Z, Control V. Oh, that's it. That's it right there. You can see where I've basically pasted in this fired indicator. So you can do all kinds of composition and annotation here using Snagit, which of course I don't really care to do at this point in time. So let me get out of that, discard the changes. Anyway, so back to topic. So we're over here. I've got my first counter. It is a good counter. It is correct. There is a technique that you have to use, and I'll demonstrate that when you're setting up the map. So I've set up the About module, which just lets me select the box art to show here in the About screen. So that works out fairly well. Took me a couple minutes to do, no big deal. Let's see, the map itself, you'll notice that as we zoom in to an extreme close-up, you can see a what do you call it? You can see a hex number, right? These are hex numbers, are artificial things that we put in these war games so that we can talk back and forth amongst ourselves and say, hey, look at hex 0414, right? Something's going on there, or your unit should be over there, or so on, right? You'll notice that the map flare is much more noticeable at this resolution, and it shows us up here in the text that we did a map flare, which is kind of useful. Now, if I zoom out, watch those numbers get smaller and smaller, and right about here, I think, there, the numbers disappear. That was not intentional. It just happens to be that at the font at which I told it to render the numbers, they do entirely disappear. So, not too bad. The user interface that I used was this one, where I selected the map, no problem. This is fairly typical, right? Name it, select it from a JPEG file, and so on. And then you add a hex grid. So this is a hex grid editor right here, and typically, I'll pop it up. What it is asking you to do is to set the grid shape. I'm not going to do it here because that will undo some of my work, but you select 3 vertices. Hopefully you can see my cursor here in the lower right of this dialog. you select 3 vertices, and that tells it more or less where the boundaries of the hexagon are. Now, let me come down here. I think it will be somewhere in here is going to be, there should be a place where it comes off. Nope. Hold on. I'm going to do something tricky. So I'm using the arrow keys right now. Oh, I know what it is. Cancel. You have to show grid. So when you're doing this for the first time, when you're setting up your grid for the first time, make it show grid. Give it a nice color. We'll go with a high visibility sort of red-ish color, and we'll edit the grid. And you can see the grid is not fully aligned here. In this case, I've had a bit of trouble getting the grid to align. Come on up. And we'll make this picture a bit larger so that I can navigate a bit easier. And what I've done instead is I chose to make the registration just about spot on in this area. Okay, and this is more or less the center of the map opposite Kalach, because this is where the main confrontation line is. This town, I think Skvorin, Guryev, Skvorin, Lashki. Again, apologies for pronunciation. Actually, I think the line is up here between Skvorin and Lipologovsky. Right, that's where the main confrontation line is in this scenario, and I've chosen to have the registration between what Vassal thinks the hexes are and what the actual hexes are on the map just about spot on here. I'm going to use the arrow keys. I'm going to come off a bit. See how easy it is to get things messed up? But you can use the arrow keys to get back on. I can also use control arrow keys, and now I'm changing the shape of the hexes. Right, this is resizing the grid. Now, and so on. I'm going to cancel out of it because I don't need this right now. So that's what's going on here. The hexes are close enough that even if, okay, I don't want to show the grid actually, but you can see the grid here on the actual map. And it's decently on here where we're going to conduct most of the battle, which is this area in the center left of the screen. Again, you can see the towns of Lipologovsky, Skvorin, and such. The top of this is, the top of the scenario is Osinovka. That's in play. I believe a lot of things. I know that Kamensky is in play. I believe Golubinsky is in play over here on the right. And this Malo Golubinsky, don't know, may very well be in play as well. But that's about the extent of it. A little bit of the area around Kalach. And you can see that the registration is sufficiently good that I can, it knows where the hexes are, even if it's off a little bit. If you get really off, here I'm at 4413, here I'm not. So let's go real, what was that example? So here's 4413, and if I get far enough off the edge here, 4513, right? Visually I'm still in the hex, right? But it's hardly a concern. Most people are going to aim for the center of the hex anyway. Let me turn that off. That I don't mean to show a hex here, hex grid. Okay. And I'm actually going to close the game. You wind up closing the game and opening the game, going a new game a fair amount of the time here when you're doing this. So I'm going to come down to Kalach. Why is it showing? I must have hit the save button by mistake at some point. So let's save. Let's exit. This is akin to live coding demos in the software industry. Best avoided. No. And now the grid is gone. Yay. No, it's not gone. What the heck? Hold on. Let me pop up the user interface again. Get the hex grid. Edit grid. I'm going to save. Show grid. Edit grid. here we are. And we've got good registration where we're going to be doing most of the fighting again. So I'll save. I'm going to edit the grid. I'm going to save again. Say OK. And save. And then I'm going to file, close. And then file. It did save, didn't it? Yeah. We'll save one more time. Save. You see it takes a couple of seconds to save. There's that third save message right here. And now we will open and hopefully have the result that we want. Yeah, okay, that grid's gone. Yeah, he didn't like that grid anyway. So let's come back over here. We'll get to Kalach and bring down a counter onto the map. So that's what I've got so far. I have taken, I have a lot of detail here. This actually is a copy of a different game module that I happen to have created recently. This is the Pacific Island Campaign right here, so really small. Pacific Island Campaign counter right here, and I just haven't simply removed them yet. But it did give me, pardon me, it gave me a lot of functionality here, such as I can move, and this guy can move too, even though you'll see right here the move indicator is pretty good here and it's wrong here. I'm going to have to make some changes there to account for the larger size of the counters and the hexes. But I have it available, it's all wired up, and I can clear the move markers just like that. There's a mini map, I got that for free, so you can see how big this map is. It's just a large graphics file. It's fairly humongous, but you can see the counters there, and that's a good thing. All right, and what else? I got my D6, yay, and I have combat markers. Let's see, let me get combat going. Okay, and a decent size, so I got those for free, right? I am going to have to do some work. Let's say, you know, oh, we're attacking the Germans. I don't know why. The U.S. Marine headquarters has challenged the Germans to an arm wrestling contest, I suppose. Historically inaccurate on so many accounts, but we'll say that we are evenly matched. And so I get a lot of this stuff for free just by having copied over from a prior module, which is good. So that's what we've got going on today. My next trick here is, in fact, you notice that I got a number of things here that I'm going to have to work on, but so I've toggled the movement trail on, and you can see that, in fact, we have a movement trail, right? So these right here, and yeah, useful stuff. So I've got a fair amount of functionality now. My next trick, though, is I'm going to have to do the back side of these counters. So the counters over here in Pacific Islands Campaign, oh, you see I get that kind of zoom in. So if I were to stack, you can see that I can hover and get a showing of all the counters in the hex. Anyway, the counters in Pacific Island Campaign, that's this blue fellow right here, they're all single-sided, whereas they are mostly double-sided in Armored Knights Case Blue. So I've nattered on for long enough. That is what's going on here, and I'll drop some other videos as we go along. So just to sort of mark my progress. But I'm doing the Tank Cemetery scenario. That's the smallest scenario available. It's, oh, I don't know. I think I'll have to do 100, 120 units maybe. Could be a little less than that. I'm not sure of the counts. It's been a while. And a lot of them are double-sided, so I'm going to have to do a fair number of scans. I'm going to have to bring in all of the orders of battle for this battle, not for out in the Pacific. Of course, the charts, the tracks, and so on, and they're all going to be appropriate for the game. And once I've got all that done, you know, set this thing out in the wild and let people hammer on it and see what you all think. So, but anyway, progress to date. Let's clean up. delete, delete, clear the move markers, which clears the movement trails, and we will unsuppress him, and so on. So that's it. Hope you like the video. Of course, hit the like button if you do, and we will, you know, I'm kind of in my closing spiel. Let me address one other thing that is a slight concern for existing players. Okay. So, this isn't an elephant in the room, but it's a thing. This G1 hex right here, center screen. So Armored Knights Case Blue uses kind of a polar coordinate system, which is to say that, here I'm gonna be tricky with this thing. Let me come out a hex or 2 or 3. That'll work fine. I'm gonna take my screenshot. Okay, nothing up my sleeve. Okay, we're back. When I tried to hit the screenshot button, I'm actually using the Snagit tool to record this video because it also records video. And when I tried to screenshot it, it closed off the video, so I talked for about another minute. So back to topic. We have a system of polar coordinates that Armored Knights Case Blue uses to identify specific hexes. So we happen to be on the E7 map. Okay. In fact, well, I'm not going to demonstrate that. It's noted at the upper right-hand corner of the map, E7. So we're at G, and suppose that I wanted to identify this town, Verkhney Golubaya, let's say. So the coordinate would be E7 for the map, then G for this hex right here. This is sort of an index hex, right? Then I would say it's direction 1. So starting at 12 o'clock, you go clockwise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are directions. So we're more or less off in the northwest direction. So I'm going to say G1. We're going to come out 2 hexes total, right? So 1, 2 hexes. So G, 1 direction, 2 hexes. G1, 2. Then you make a 1 hex face right turn from that first coordinate. So G1, 2, 1. So the entire coordinate is E7, G, direction 1, 2 hexes, turn 1 hex. So G1, G1, 2, 1, G1, 2, 2, G1, 2, 3, and so on. If I come to Osanovkaya, I can make that E7, G, 5, 2 for 2 hexes. Nope, doesn't work that way. You have to go clockwise all the time. So it's G4, direction 4, 1 hex, 2 hexes. So E7, G4, E7, G4, 1, 2. Something like that. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So Vassal, it doesn't work that way in Vassal. Vassal always creates, it only does conventional gridded hex numbers. So I needed it to be able to identify things like what's going on up here. You know, to be able to say, oh, in the log I saw that you moved a unit from here to here. So we've got to be able to identify that. What I wound up doing, oh, we're on E8. Sorry, we're on the E8 map. Really? I guess we are. You can see that right up here, I'm map flaring and it shows as 0101. This may change. I'm going to leave it up to GSI as to whether they would like this this gridded hex coordinate system to start from the upper left or say the bottom left. But for now, you can see what we're doing. And obviously when we move things around here, like, okay, I want to go back and check out 3609, 3612. So let's do that. Zoom out a bit. In fact, I'm going to use the mini map and come down here because I know it's in this area. Dismiss the mini map. Zoom back in. 3609 right here. Okay. And this is 3612, so I'll flare on that. You can see it's 3612. So that's what we're talking about. We've got a useful grid coordinate system here. That was the last little thing I could think of to shove into the rest of this video. Anyway, hope you like it. Love to hear your comments. and we'll see you down the road. Thanks. Bye.